Drink water from your own cistern, and running water from your own well. Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be only your own, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breasts satisfy you at all times, and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we continue meditating in Proverbs chapter 5, verses 15 to 20. As Solomon advises his son, the future king, about how he should behave, and a large area of his instruction is in relation to his relationships with women. He is to avoid the immoral woman, but he is to enjoy his spouse, his wife. This is indeed according to God's plan. As Jesus emphasized, in the beginning, God made them male and female, with the plan that a man should leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two should be one flesh. We all know the commandment that says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," and that the Bible speaks very strongly against sexual relationships outside of the bond of marriage. But it also speaks very positively of sexual relationships within the bond of marriage. And this is one of those passages. There's another one in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and the whole emphasis of the love between a husband and wife is the theme of Ephesians chapter 5. We find Isaac showing endearment to Rebekah. These things indicate that God has a very positive attitude to sexual relations, but he has a particular purpose for them, essentially to produce children and raise them in a nurturing environment, a well cared for environment, but also that the man and the wife should complement each other so that the two together find fulfillment and satisfaction in each other. And so that's the emphasis here. Everything that is designed with a purpose and with some design rules in place. And so when God designed human beings, he recognized it was not good for man to be alone, and he prepared Eve for Adam, a wife for the husband. He could not create the totality of what he wanted in a human in just one being. He needed the two, the man and the woman, to capture the character of God, the two to complement each other, and together provide a unity. And so that's the emphasis of what Christian marriage and godly marriage is about. Two people coming together, committed to each other, and enjoying a very deep and personal relationship with each other, physical as well as spiritual. But the converse of that is that while you can make love on a casual basis, that was never the purpose, that is not the intention. To do so undermines your whole being, because God designed the system to strengthen marriage, to provide completion in a person over a lifetime. And the system that he involved, as Jesus said, a man and a woman coming together for life. So what does Solomon say to his son here? Drink water from your own cistern, and running water from your own well. And the whole context here, as we proceed, is that he's not just talking about water, although this is a good principle, that you should provide your own well to provide your own water. If you provide your own well, then you can care for it and make sure it keeps clean. If you use a public well, then there is always the risk that somebody will come along and pollute it, and nobody maintains it, everybody abuses it. So the general principle is to provide your own resources to the extent that you can in fundamental areas, and water is something that's pretty fundamental. But he's not really talking about water, he's talking about the enjoyment of a personal relationship within the bond of marriage. He said, should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the street. You don't take your water that is precious to you and just pour it down the gutter. And so you don't distribute your deep love with any and every person that walks past. But that's the implication if you don't have a uniqueness and a specificity in a marriage relationship. If every woman can go with every man and there's nothing special about the relationship, well, nature tells us it's not that way, but that's the principle you take if you reject the concept of one man for one woman for life. So he says, let them be only your own, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. So he's really talking about the blessing of children and the sharing together of a life. A couple marrying while they are young, the wife of your youth, and continuing faithful together into old age. Now this of course requires work on both parts. It requires an acceptance and a willingness to cooperate and adjust. The adjustments begin when you're young, but they need to continue as circumstances change during your life. He goes on to say, as a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breasts satisfy you at all times, and always be enraptured with her love. What he's emphasizing here is that the man and woman should physically enjoy one another. That enjoyment should also lead to satisfaction, a deep satisfaction. Indeed, enraptured, the margin here says intoxicated with her love. It is something that provides a deep satisfaction, not just an instantaneous rush, but a continuing satisfaction, caressing and caring for one another. There's nothing wrong with that in the bonds of marriage. In fact, that is the purpose God had in mind for marriage. But this deep satisfaction only comes when the relationship is exclusive of all others. Love-making outside of marriage undermines marriage, whether it happens before you're married or after you have been married. If you're not satisfied with your spouse and you go looking for another, whether a harlot or in some other form of relationship, you are breaking your promise to your spouse. You are providing a bad example for others, undermining marriage as an institution, what God designed as something beautiful and powerful. For there's something very special in a deep relationship with a single person, and the physical aspects of that strengthen the relationship as a bonding exercise of commitment as well as of enjoyment. And so he concludes here by saying, for why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? The idea of love presented in Ephesians 5 is that the husband will sacrifice himself for his wife, and that the wife will be submissive to her husband because she is completely confident in his love. There's no thought there of violence one way or the other, or the husband forcing, but rather the husband loves so that his wife has complete confidence, and that bond is strengthened by the sacrifice he makes for her, the provision he provides for her. And so the exhortation of Scripture is to enjoy your spouse, but to shun any kind of deep physical relationship with one who is not your spouse, because God designed the system to strengthen marriage, and outside of marriage it is destroying, but inside of marriage it is strengthening. Drink water from your own cistern, and running water from your own well. Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be only your own, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breasts satisfy you at all times, and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced in the arms of a seductress?